Welcome to the Santa Cruz Coffee Break. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on Apple Podcast, please follow, hit the like button, or any subscribes. It really helps us with the algorithms. Santa Cruz Coffee Break is independent of Santa Cruz Guitar Company, and all opinions are those of the speakers. Santa Cruz Coffee Break is produced by the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum. We invite you to join us on the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum at SCGCPF for more fun. Now, let's get on with this installment of Santa Cruz Coffee Break.
Nice.
Got a little road wear on it, but it's the sweetest guitar there is. I mean, come on, look at that stuff. It's just Richard knows exactly where this lot came from. When I talk to him, he's every time he sees it, he kind of goes into, oh yeah, that was from the, and I remember that top, and I remember. How's that view, guys? Is that okay?
That's awesome.
Really beautiful, and you gave us the best intro we've ever had. So I'll just tell you that we're already rocking and rolling here.
Oh wow!
With a real
tricky devils.
With a real rock star, Mr. Keith Greeninger. And boy, if you thought we didn't save the best for last, we didn't. But,
this is not the last. This is not the last.
This is not the last.
Yeah, you must have got that. You must have got that PayPal payment I sent you, huh, Richard?
I sure did. Yeah. I'm going to give you a little bit of Keith's bio, but first of all, our disclaimers are that we're not responsible for anything that we say here, and neither is Santa Cruz Guitar Company, and we love y'all, and thanks for tuning in. Well, there in the bottom of the screen is Mr. Keith Greeninger, and as a singer-songwriter, Keith paints intricate portraits of the human condition with powerful, melodic images. It's hard to hear, buddy. Deep, engaging guitar rhythms and husky, heart-wrenching vocals. His masterfully crafted tunes and powerful presence have earned him the top songwriting awards at the prestigious Telluride Bluegrass Festival, the Caryville Folk Festival, the Napa Valley Folk Festival. Keith even had a website a page. His Facebook page at one time was "I Love Keith Greeninger's Voice."
That was not my website.
That was not his.
Somebody else put that up. I had nothing to do with that. I didn't even know it existed.
Yeah, well, it does. He's performed at festivals and legendary venues, appeared on countless national radio shows, shared stages with dozens of the country's best-known artists. Keith's records and personal appearance records, of which there are 7, correct?
I believe so, Richard. You probably know that better than I.
Yeah. Have gained him a legion of devoted fans. I can say that again because we've done some live socially distanced streaming lately, and it's pretty wild to watch 3,200 people sign into this guy on Facebook. And the respect and appreciation of music's critics far and wide, a 4th generation Northern California. Keith grew up at the edge of the rich agricultural region known as the Valley of Heart's Delight, or right now it would be called
the Silicon Valley, as it's known now.
There it is.
A lot of apples out there.
Yeah, there are a lot of apples, a lot of low-hanging fruit. Another lifelong bond was soon to be sealed when Keith's family relocated to a home near the Great Pacific. Here, Keith continued to write songs while playing in local bands throughout his high school career in Santa Cruz, California. After graduation, Keith packed up his truck and headed for the mountains of Colorado, living in a small cabin with no electricity in the hills above Boulder. What years was that, Keith? Do you remember?
Probably about 81, 82, the early 80s.
I lived there I lived there from 76 to 78. And
where did you live?
I lived on, what we played was Peggy's High-Low on the diagonal. I lived in, I'm trying to think of the big north-south street that was there. It was a little thing, but.
So you were right in Boulder?
Right in Boulder, yeah. I got up every morning, rode my bike up to Netterland on Boulder Canyon, rode my pedal bike, came back down.
Wow.
Yeah, every day.
That's a hell of a ride.
It's a hell of a ride. 6 hours. Had a 5-night-a-week gig at Peggy's playing bass. So it was just a totally beautiful.
Wasn't Fogelberg hanging out in Netherlands around that time?
Everybody was there. Fogelberg was there. Stills was just getting thrown out of the Pioneer for the final time. But Caribou was functioning, and I'm trying to think. Walsh was still there. Hillman was still there. It was a mess of people, you know.
Yeah.
Just a mess.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, that was an amazing area at the time. When I moved out there, it was interesting because I had grown up playing a lot of acoustic guitar. I mean, I started on the acoustic guitar, but then through my high school years, got into playing electric as well. But mainly writing was always what I was drawn to, and still am to this day. Writing and singing, and I've developed my style basically just to back up my storytelling and my love for singing. But when I moved up to a cabin up outside of Boulder there, it was just, it was a lot of amazing acoustic music going on at the time, and Prine was cruising in and out of there. I just kind of, it's when I really immersed myself in acoustic music and singer-songwriters, and living up in this little cabin in the mountains up there, I ended up, starting to play and toy with a lot of bluegrass, meet a lot of folks who played, a lot of bluegrass and a lot of old traditional stuff, which led to a lot of the Appalachian songwriting and stuff. So it was an amazing time for me, man. It really was.
It was an incredibly creative group of people around there at that time, and I remember, was it Boulder Music?
Yeah.
It was Boulder Music. It was right on the main, and right next to it was the place that had the omelet that if you could eat the 6-egg omelet with the bowl of whatever else they put in there, they gave you the omelet. Nick's.
Right.
Nick's. Yeah, Nick's. Yeah, great.
A great town, beautiful place to be, man.
It was a beautiful spirit and wonderful people, and wow, it was just a special place to be at that time. Keith traveled to Central America, to Nicaragua, where he helped build schools using his skills as a carpenter and talents in that way. I think what you're going to see, if I keep going and going and going and going on this amazing biography, is that we have in front of us a person that dedicates his life to service, and the service of his community and his fans and the good of the planet. So,
thank you, Richard. Thank you for the kind introduction, and I hope it didn't go on too long for folks. I didn't realize you were going to read most of it, but thank you for that, and I appreciate
I only read half of it.
It's a long life, my brother.
I saved myself. It
life.
is a long life. I saved myself half of it and just said, the big thing is what happens right now is Keith is, as no one has been touring or playing in the past year. Where we're looking at Keith right now is his studio up in the Santa Cruz Mountain, which is Rin River Studios, which he has in the past couple of months totally set up to do live streaming with unbelievably fast internet connection.
Can I, Richard, while we're speaking, can I show you just a clip of what I get to look out my control room window here? I don't know if you guys can.
Yeah, we can see it.
Can you see that oak tree and the meadows and the redwoods? And this is a beautiful structure that a friend of mine built on 61 acres in the Santa Cruz Mountains. And I just feel very, very blessed and honored to be able to work out of here, not only make my own records, but work with a lot of other artists. And it kind of marries two of my passions, because I've been a woodworker most of my life, as well as a musician. And we have a wood shop down below the studio here. There's a mill on the property. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. But what's been really wonderful about the experience is inviting nature into the recording and live streaming process. When this particular studio, we have windows that look out into the redwoods and onto the meadows, and I've just always felt that nature is a very influential part of our music, and it's wonderful to see musicians get out of their cars when they come up to record here. You can almost feel their hearts opening up, which as a producer, if you're helping somebody produce their own music, your job is to help people get out of their heads and into their spirit world and their passion place and stuff. And nature does a lot of the work for us up here at this space, so we're lucky to be here.
I've been lucky enough to work up there with both Eric Sky and Jamie Stillway, and both of them tuned into the birds
Yeah.
You know, just tuned into the birds right off the bat. It was like,
Yeah.
open the windows. Let's listen to those birds for a little while. So,
We were doing a project up here not too long ago. As I said, we're back on 61 acres up here, and the crickets were just having a time. This was in the fall. They were there's a part of the year where you just can't keep them out, and I was thinking a little bit like, I told the client, well, don't worry, we'll fade those out and mask them. And he was going, I was kind of hoping you could turn them up, So, and it's true, when nature makes an appearance on certain things. I mean, some of my favorite parts of, the Tom Waits's, Mule Variations records is those roosters in the background, we got to let what happens happen sometimes, it's not always pristine, but we just try to make it soulful.
I think we just saw in the latest Farm Aid, and I don't know if you've had a chance to watch any reruns of that or not, but Neil was just out singing to the chickens.
Yeah.
With just one camera, and it was just Neil singing to the chickens, and it was really, really, really great.
Yeah.
And we would have never got that without COVID.
No, we wouldn't. In fact, Richard, I don't know if you remember, but you had come up the one day when you and I filmed, I think 3 or 4 community sing-alongs up here in the studio. At the later part of that day, and COVID had just kind of started, really. I think we were just about a month into it, and you and I had, had decided let's go up and shoot some video and do some sing-alongs and to send out to folks to kind of lift their spirits a little bit. And at one point at the end of that afternoon, I just said, well, follow me, and you followed me with the camera. And we walked out over here in the Grove, and we just started playing out amongst the trees, and you were shooting the camera and stuff. Well, it was so nice to see people's responses on the Facebook posts of how much nature, how good it felt, especially at that time of COVID, right? Because we were at that point where a lot of people who were saying that from different parts of the country were locked in apartments or, inside of cities and stuff. So, the interesting thing about these times is the technology is allowing us to share the medicine, and definitely nature is always a huge part of that. I mean, we're here to talk about guitars, right? What more of a natural confluence of spirit and craft than guitars, and so much of it stems, of course, from our natural world. So I'm honored to be here. I'm glad you guys wanted to do this.
Well, let me just say that, I think the first time I got introduced to your work, Keith, was at one of the Santa Cruz events. I'm trying to think, maybe it was the 35th anniversary up.
In Felton.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I just remember being in the audience. I didn't know who you were. You did a 1 or 2 songs, and I mean, it hit just how passionate you were in your stories, and your guitar playing was amazing. And I just sat there going, man, I want to be that guy. I want to be able to write songs like that, and I want to be able to sing like that, and I want to be able to play guitar like that. I am screwed.
Isn't it something how we always end up feeling that way at some point about something in our lives, right? We always go, oh, and then we never know when we're the guy on the other end and somebody is saying that about us. Tad, thanks for saying that, man. By the way, it's great to meet you finally, and
Yeah,
and to have you on the screen, man.
Well, when Richard said he was going to arrange this with you, I was really excited. I mean, I don't know enough about your background. I read the lengthy thing that I got sent and was quite amazed. But I mean, to me, I don't know what more we could do other than to let you kind of tell your stories and sing, because I think that just from what I know, that's just you. I mean, that you put it right out there.
Thanks, man. I remember the anniversary show that you were talking about. That was a really wonderful night. And God, there was so much good spirit in that room. And I think, was it Noki Edwards? Who was it that played that night? Somebody from the Ventures.
It was
what was that?
Was
it Noki?
It was Noki.
I think he finished up the night. They were it was such a great spirit in that room. And we're here you know, to talk about our brothers and sisters over at Santa Cruz Guitar, and to praise, you know, sing their praises, literally sing their praises. But I just can't say enough about these instruments and these people. You know, the people that build them. I've known Richard. I probably met Richard in the late '80s. You know, I mean, in the early '80s, I think is when I met him. He and Bruce had just had a little shop way out on the west side. Probably '83, '84. I had an old Martin. And I'm not sure about any of these dates. Richard will probably correct me and say, no, it was a whole different time period. But I do remember them in this really cool little tiny shop way out on the west side. And I used to live up the coast on Swanton Road, which we just lost most of Swanton Road in the fires. In fact, I just drove up to Last Chance in Swanton the other day. It was amazing to check that out. But I used to drive into Santa Cruz to play music or do whatever I was doing. And I was so proud of, I finally had a Martin. D35, 1970. And every once in a while I need some work done. Somebody told me about these guys that were working on guitars at the edge of town. And so I stopped in, and they were the nicest guys, but they were very serious about guitars. And I remember they would very subtly say, yeah, well, you know, these Martins are nice, but you know, they do this and they kind of, you know, and that creates a you know, and I remember just being kind of astounded, thinking to myself, dude, this is like, I mean, you know, the Martin and the Gibson are like the holy grail. I mean, these guys are serious. They're taking this thing apart, you know? But I, you know, in looking back, I realized that this, you know, I was meeting masters. I was meeting people who were respecting the craft of the great guitars at that time, and we're already trying to figure out how to improve on it, not disrespecting it, but just saying, okay, so, you know, let's take what we've learned from these guys and let's move even more forward. And so meeting those guys back then in that little tiny shop and having them work on my Martin, you know, I just really respected them. And they would always josh me a little bit and say, you should buy one of our guitars. And I would joke with them that I'm a musician. I can't barely afford the guitar that I had, but I kept telling them one of these days, you know. And I'd say maybe a couple of years after I had met them and they had worked on my Martin for a while, I was left a little bit of money by one of my grandmothers that had passed away, a couple $1,000 or something. And I'll never forget being able to go in and talk with Richard and place the order for an OM cutaway, Indian Rosewood, you know, and never forget showing up to actually play the thing and pick it up, you know, and then having that connection to my grandmother.
Very nice. Very nice.
It was cool. And to have a guitar built by people that I respected and also bear the name of the hometown and all that. It began a real wonderful friendship and bond with craftsmen and Richard and all the folks at Santa Cruz. You know, I carry them with me proudly. I'm proud to take their instruments wherever I go. And this isn't a sales pitch. This is just speaking the truth. You know, when you're a songwriter and a singer and a musician, these things are an extension of your spirit and your musical spirit. And they're also an extension of what touches the audience. So that's what's so nice about playing a guitar you believe in and playing a guitar where you know people built it with their hearts the same way that you're putting your heart into your songwriting, and people who thought about the trees that it came from, and people who think about how to take care of each other in a business world that sometimes tries to just force, you know, speed and profit. You know, these Richard and the folks at Santa Cruz has set a model that I'm proud to represent, not just through their instruments, but through the spirit of how they treat each other, how they treat the community. So it's a beautiful thing, you know, and I do probably have the world's greatest OM, as I was mentioning before.
What number is that?
Let me see here. this sucker is OM 24,
Wow.
February 1988.
Hello.
Now, I notice it doesn't have a cutaway.
No, okay. Tad, you had to bring that up. We're going to go into part 2 of the story.
Well, this is in-depth podcasting, so we try to get right.
Yeah. Assuming we probably lost everybody by now because we're just rambling here. But actually, I do enjoy telling this story because I think it's probably part of every guitar player's journey. You can do everything you can sometimes to think that you can design the perfect instrument or the perfect home or whatever that is. But the amazing thing is sometimes it already exists out there, and I've kind of learned that over the years through guitars, we all folks who are watching this that are guitar players, sometimes you'll just pick up a certain guitar, you just strum one chord or you pick one note and something happens, and it's like, what is going on here? So getting back to the original guitar, they built me this beautiful cutaway OM. And I had been used to playing the D35, which had, of course, is a big cannon of a rosewood dreadnought, lovely guitar. And at the time I was playing, some folks out there might remember the group I was in called City Folk. It was a trio with myself, Roger Foyer, and Kimball Hurd. And in that band, I was mainly playing rhythm. So we were a trio. We had myself playing rhythm guitar, Kimball Hurd, who's an awesome multi-instrumentalist playing mandolin and mandola and dobro and banjo, and then also guitar. And Roger Foyer, spectacular acoustic guitar lead player. And so basically I was always holding down the rhythm and doing a lot of the writing and doing a good portion of the lead vocals, although we all did write and sing, and it was a really nice collaboration. But essentially I was the bass player and drummer in that band with that D35, just that nice big low cannon of a guitar. When I got the first Santa Cruz, it was a beautiful guitar, pristine, but I found myself missing that bottom end. And I knew in a way that the bottom end was going to come into that OM, but it might take another year or so, which I was happy to wait for. I mean, because the guitar played so beautifully. In fact, there is a record, kind of one of our fan favorite CDs that City Folk did called Shadows on the Wall, which is a CD where the three of us used to get snuck into the record plant in the middle of the night because one of our friends was an engineer there. So when all the big rock star bands would go home, we'd sneak into the record plant. This was the early days of digital recording. And a wonderful engineer friend of ours by the name of Manny La Caruba, who became the main engineer there, but at the time was just an assistant engineer, would sneak us into the big room. And he would set up these two beautiful little condenser mics in a cross pattern. And the three of us would just sit in a semicircle. And we were just playing tunes. We were just capturing our repertoire. But the recordings turned out to be recorded so beautifully sonically that we ended up putting out as a record. And on that whole record is the original Santa Cruz that I have, the original cutaway. And I still go back and listen to that record and hear some things and go, man, I knew I should have kept that guitar, but I couldn't afford it at the time. So what happened was, and this is that long-winded Greeninger interview that all these folks are going to go, what the heck? What happened was Roger Foyer was teaching a guitar student who happened to have this OM, and he had left it at Roger's house and he was thinking about selling this guitar. And I was rehearsing with the guys at City Folk. We would rehearse over in Roger's kitchen, had great acoustics. And one night, Roger and Kimball went out to buy some food that we were going to cook for dinner. And I reached over and I picked this guitar up. It was sitting on a stand. And I don't think I put this guitar down for 30 years. It was like, I had one of those moments. I had the original Santa Cruz acoustic, which was just this beautiful, pristine, even bassed high-end thing. But when I picked up this OM that didn't have the cutaway, It was a little bit older. It had the thinner top. It just had this amazing bottom end to it as I was saying, that I was missing from the D35, but all that top end, pristineness and beauty and attack. And I ended up selling the other guitar really quickly because, everybody wants a Santa Cruz. And I turned around and gave that money that I bought that I got from that guitar and bought this one. So there you go. That's how I ended up, you brought it up, Tad. Where's the cutaway? Well, that's how I ended up with this other guitar.
Well,
I'm sure that other guitar is out there just killing it.
Well, and I'm sure Eric would say you got 2 more frets there than you really need. So why need the cutaway?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's for sure. Hey, just as a side note, for some reason, Zoom is telling me that we only have 7 minutes left, although I have unlimited Zoom. So if we get cut off, I'll just reissue another meeting and just stay there and just look for an email, and we'll do it in a second. I have no idea what's going on with it, but
you got it.
Because we got
you
that.
Tell me if I'm rambling too much.
No.
No.
We love it.
I think we were actually more afraid you were going to be too professional, all set up in the studio and everything, whereas, we're just sitting around in our side rooms or whatever.
We get enough of that. I mean, that's why I say, just, hanging out on a nice day like this and just chatting with you guys about Santa Cruz guitars, I could just kind of drift off the map. So just keep pulling me back and let me know where the guardrails are, so to speak. Right. But yeah, no, so this, that's how I ended up with this guitar. And now a little more backstory on that is that I was telling you, there were 3 of us in City Folk, and the first of us to get a Santa Cruz in City Folk was Kimball Hurd. Kimball had, I forget how he did, I think he picked up some kind of an FS second. And that's what kind of started, the Santa Cruz guitar envy thing in the City Folk group. It was kind of like one of those moments. He got that FS, and Roger and I both Roger had this beautiful little double O Martin, I think, that he could just make sound just so beautiful. And then I had the Dreadnought D35. Kimball brings in this Santa Cruz FS, and everything just, we kind of went, okay, that's kind of the next level there. And so one side note about that as well is this guitar from Santa Cruz that I have now actually has an FS neck on it. One time touring, I'm going to say probably 10, 15 years back, the airlines took this guitar out of my hands when I was getting on a plane. I was on tour to the East Coast, and ended up losing the guitar temporarily. I had to wait for it to come back later that night. I was flying to Burlington, Vermont. They ended up breaking the neck on this thing. The beautiful part of this story was, if you can believe it, I ended up in a small airport in Vermont, and they ended up giving me the full cost of what it would take to have Santa Cruz build me a new neck and install it on the guitar. So when I got back home, I remember that FS neck that was on Kimball Hurd's guitar, and I remember liking it because it was wider. I asked Richard, can you guys put a wider neck on this, an FS neck? So this is the basically a bit of a customized thing where it's, the OM body, but with a bit wider neck. And can't say enough about it. Love it.
Yeah. So that's intriguing because they do. I love Santa Cruz's 1 13/16 inch wide neck, which is their FS neck.
Mm-hmm.
And hearing that that's on your guitar is like, whoa, now that's a nice combination right there.
It's Tad, it's a wonderful well, for me, I mean, some people like a smaller neck. I like a little more room on the neck, and I love it. I mean, it was one of those kind of bittersweet, almost blessing and a curse moments when the neck got cracked, but I ended up getting an even better neck. The original neck was that slight V, and it had the ivoroid, on the sides and stuff. it still played beautifully, but this neck, I'm never going back, you know.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
So,
All right, we're trying to figure out this Zoom thing. So if I drift away, guys, just keep going.
no
Sure.
problem.
Hey,
Yeah.
So,
so
how long have you been at that studio, Keith? I mean, I was actually there when we got invited down by Carolyn and Gerard to shoot their video for their
Oh
the
yeah,
title
for
is escaping me.
the recent release, right? Their Marty Robbins.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. Yes.
What a great
And
piece of music. That's
I
such a
mean, oh, but that studio and that wood shop is so amazing. I'm also a bit of a woodworker, so I mean, I was just walking around there in awe.
oh
Um,
great.
how do you get anything done? I mean, it's just so wonderful up there. I mean, the views and I mean, it's just I don't know. I'd have to find a whole new level of getting myself motivated to try and work in an environment like that because
Yeah, you know, Ted, it's funny you bring that up. I think that you know, having been in a lot of recording studios over the years and you know, um I'm always for some reason for me, I'm always I was always pretty comfortable in recording studios. I know some of the artists that I play with aren't quite as comfortable in recording studios, but I always kind of enjoyed it. But I I found that the key to making great music and making great recordings is to almost forget that you're recording, to create situations where you're just so relaxed, you know, you just feel like you're in your living room or you feel like you're, you know, so that's kind of what it's like up here. We have some wonderful equipment. We have great mics. So we have some universal audio gear, you know. Another thing about living here in Santa Cruz is not only do we have, you know, Santa Cruz guitar, we have universal audio. We have just so many great instrument and equipment makers. And so we have a lot of great gear up here, but the room just sounds good, you know? And that's such a huge part of any recording. It's just like any of these wonderful guitar players that you guys have interviewed would tell you in a heartbeat. If you capture the performance, you can almost capture it on a tin can if you have to, you know, but if the spirit's there and the player has hit their mark and the guitar's done its thing, you know, if you don't capture the spirit of the performance, doesn't matter how great the equipment is, you know, it's not quite gonna connect with people as much. So that's kind of where we veer here. It's just the room is big. We've got, you know, 34 wide and 52 deep across, and then our ceilings are 16-foot high. So we don't have a lot of shortwave sound reflection to contend with. It's just that old adage, you know, you put a decent player in a good sounding room with a decent sounding mic in front of it. You don't have to do too much. You know, mentioning how lucky I feel to have a room that's big enough and you know, a space that where it's really nice. Some of the most enjoyable stuff is watching other artists be able to get to come up here and enjoy it and be inspired by a room that's big enough to have a lot of people in the same space and, you know, still get separation and just feel, you know, feel inspired. So yeah, we're having fun up here. I'm glad you got to see the wood shop down below, Tad. It sounds like you got a peek down there because there's a lot of really cool wood up here as well. A lot of
oh,
slabs and yeah.
I was admiring all that stickered up wood on the
Yeah.
drive in there. I was like, you know, wait, can we put a couple of those in the back of the car?
Yeah,
Um,
my friend Chuck Pyle, who owns the property and has been developing it over, you know, just done a beautiful job keeping it wild and natural. But he's a miller and has been collecting wood for years and years and has a wood miser. In fact, he just recently got an electric wood miser, which
ooh,
is lovely. It's very, very quiet, very, very efficient. But yeah, we got slabs. We got wood, and
well,
a lot of the framing that you're seeing up above me here, the timber framing, was milled, you know, on his mill
yeah.
over the years. So you can kind of see there.
I don't
Hope I'm
think you
doing an
have
okay
room.
job of showing it, but
I don't
yeah,
think you have room, Tad, for a wood miser in your
you
shop.
got quiet all of a sudden. What was that, Richard?
I don't think that Tad has room for a wood miser in his shop.
I don't think so.
I know he's got 15 bandsaws and
No, four, just four, just
yeah,
four.
so
Yeah.
yeah.
No, but no, I have a parking lot I could put a wood miser on. But
Yes, you do.
the problem with having a wood miser is then you got to move some really big logs.
Yeah,
That's the hard part of the job.
Yeah,
very, very
got the
true.
green one.
Well, the next
So-
time you guys are going to fire that thing up, you give me an invite. I would love to go through the experience of milling out a log like that with one of those. So
Yeah, no, it's you know, if you're a woodworker and you're a person who loves wood, it's so gratifying and to be able to take these beautiful logs and then dimensionalize them and mill them up. And again, getting back to all our friends building guitars and stuff, the Santa Cruz crew, and you know, another wonderful parts of our community over here, you know, Rick Turner and folks like that, Jeff Troggett and Roy McAllister. Getting back to the stories, those guys were all, at least Roy and Jeff were building guitars at Santa Cruz when I picked up that first OM I was talking to you about.
yeah.
But yeah, so we got wood up here, and it's in fact Richard's been up here, and I think him and Chuck have done some horse trading for wood, and it's wonderful to watch. You know,
My fence in my backyard, all and by the way, my fence came from there, and Keith built it for me. So what more can I say?
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
You've played a lot of music festivals. That's been a stalwart of you, and that looks like it's put on hold for a little bit. But give us a funny story, and give us a disaster story.
oh man,
They can't be the same.
no, they can't be the
Sure
same.
they can.
Actually, they could be the same.
Sure they can.
Man, Richard, I'd have to search my memory banks for that. You know, I'll tell you one of my favorite festival stories, and this is the wonderful thing about festivals. They're just so human. You know, everybody's had their folk festival moment where they've gotten, you know, you're sitting at a campfire, or you're, you know, you had mentioned I was fortunate enough many years back to have been one of the finalists and winners of the Kerrville songwriting thing, which was a real high honor for me, you know, and there's just so many great songwriters, and to be, you know, completely fair and honest, the nice thing about Kerrville is they don't pick one winner, you know, they just pick six. In the end, they pick six finalists and just call all six of you the songwriters from that particular year that get those honors. But most of the early experiences for a lot of us songwriters at Kerrville was just a sense of community. You know, you go to Kerrville as much just to be there with other songwriters, actually more than you do to perform, really. Performing is a wonderful thing to be a part of there, but the real medicine, the real joy of being at Kerrville is just being around so many great songwriters and having a community of like-minded people who are exploring the same craft. So the best moments at Kerrville are usually around a fire at night and discovering songwriters that are just blowing your mind and building friendships and stuff. And I was at Kerrville at one point in kind of the earlier part of my songwriting days, and all of a sudden I turn around and there's Utah Phillips, and somebody said, "Hey man, this, you know, you want to meet Bruce?" I said, "Oh God, yeah." I mean, he was a huge hero of mine forever. I was a little bit shy, you know, and Bruce throws his arm around me and yells, "Comrade!" and gives me a big hug. And we start chatting about things. And he was living up in Nevada City at this time. I knew that because I was kind of secretly following Utah Phillips quite a bit. But anyway, later that evening, we're sitting we have this little camp circle, a bunch of friends of ours, myself, Chuck Brodsky, John Smith, Tom Payne, Nikki Lehman. It was called Camp California. And we're passing the guitar around, and I finished playing my song, and I turned around and look, and Utah Phillips is sitting right next to me. And, you know, almost dropped the guitar. You know, I was trying to play it cool. I'm like, okay, I can handle this, you know. And I turned, you know, not only was I just completely honored that he was sitting there and that he'd been listening to all our songs, but I turned to hand him a guitar, and he says, no, no, no. He says, I'm just here to listen. And, you know, he had us pass the guitar to the next person, but he would, you know, always compliment the song of whoever had played it. And he was such a generous man. Afterwards, I realized that Bruce, in his later years, was having some arthritis in his hand. So he didn't play a lot near the back half of his career. He was more of a storyteller and a historian. And if you ever went to his concerts, you know, he spent most of the concert talking, but he always looked like he was about to play another song. And did you guys ever see Bruce? He was just a master of humor, a master of history, inspiration, of humanity, you know, keeping alive the spirit of doing good, you know, doing the right thing, doing the fair thing, and hearkening back to, say, the Woody Guthrie and people like that, where you use the guitar and you use the voice as a way to keep up the good fight and to share the stories that needed to be told. So for me, you know, those kind of moments at the festivals, those are the ones that stick out for me. You know, the performances are always really fun and wonderful to play in front of large audiences, and then always get to, you'll see some of your friends, you get to invite them up on stage. It's, you know, but for me, it's those moments, the quiet times, when you actually get to meet some of your heroes and heroines, and just see just what amazing artists and people they were. You know, just you know, it's going to come back. We'll be gathering again in large groups and sharing music. It may be a while, you know, we'll get back to it safely, but it won't go away completely. We have to be around each other, you know, and we have to share the stories.
Well, so we've been talking about songwriting a little bit, and as I said, I think at the beginning, depending upon how this is edited, um, you know, it was your songwriting and singing that really caught my attention at that show. So if we ignore, you know, the great guitar playing and the great singing and the great performance, and just concentrate on songwriting, can you tell us a little bit about your process and how you approach it, and how you get into because your songs, they have a story and kind of almost a motivational feeling to them. You know, it I don't know how to describe it, which is really sad since I'm doing this podcast. But can
No,
you
no.
tell us about, you know, how you approach it?
Well, thank you, Tad, for first of all, for such kind words about what you felt on some of my songs. That's an honor for me. Yeah, I guess for me, songwriting has always been a very spiritual endeavor. It's been a very emotional and enjoyable endeavor for me. Ever since I was a little kid, even before I was writing songs, I remember how the right lyric against the right chord progression, against the right emotional break of a voice, I remember just how much that could affect me and the people around me, you know, even before I was playing music, and being kind of drawn to that. And so as I literally came into music mainly because I just loved singing, and I loved maybe someday being able to tell a story. As I said, I love playing the guitar. I love having that bond with the guitar, but the actual playing of the guitar for me is oftentimes just a support. It's in, which is kind of has become kind of something that I've actually begun to enjoy so much over the years, is that how do you use your 10 fingers and your 2 hands to create as much interest and drama or platform as you can to tell whatever story you're getting ready to tell. You know, when you ask about the songwriting process, I guess for me, it's it's different, but it's very, it's always different. I mean, some songs are just, you know, maybe you're going to write something fun that just, it's all of a sudden you're playing the guitar, you're just had your coffee, the morning sun's hitting you a certain way, and you come across this cool little riff, and you're just gonna follow that part of the spirit and the spark, right? It's just, this is gonna be a fun one. Let's just have some fun. But for me, a lot of the stuff that I work on, just to give you some insights, I mentioned earlier about Swanton Road and Last Chance and the fires up there when I used to live up there before the fires, of course, and I first met Richard and the guys. You know, I just had been feeling this pull. I needed to go see.
It's really devastating to go through what we've gone through in the past year here with isolation and then fires and then everybody basically losing their jobs.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
you know, on top of all of that, there's this sense of non-connection, and I think that that's something that you really bring, Keith, is you bring that humanity and that medicine that is it. A lot of people in this area have gone through some pretty rough times in the past year.
You know, Richard, I think you're right. And I think each one of us, we have something that we always bring to the tribe, to the community. And we have a way that we process things and that we give back. And I guess what I was, you know, about to say there before, you know, things catch up to you emotionally. But to answer Tad's question, part of my writing process is to stay with that emotion, those emotions, just to go play, you know, to feel things, to not calculate, to not say, oh, I'm going to go in, you know, to this situation or that situation to quote, write a song. But, you know, because sometimes it's not about writing the song, but it's about being in the emotional and spiritual space of what we're experiencing in life. And when I think about when I write songs, sometimes I don't worry about whether, you know, I really am not a big fan of, oh, I'm going to go write about this, or I'm more, I'm trying to pay attention to say where my instincts are taking me or bringing me, what it's feeling like, maybe where I need to go and see if there's a way I can help explain a situation or help tell a story that is not completely being told. And that process for me, a lot of times, sometimes just has to do with going and being there and helping or staying in the situation. And the song doesn't come out sometimes, maybe for months, maybe for years, but we have to be in the world and in life, right? So it's a long explanation to not a very clear process, but what I can say is that I think as human beings, some of our best work comes out of our most authentic places. And sometimes it's stirring up what's already in us. And then each of us has this skill set. Every one of us has a skill set where we then process and bring out some kind of a piece or a gift to share to the circle. And that's kind of how I look at songwriting. I look at that as it's something that for some reason I was intrigued by at a young age. Some reason I enjoyed doing it. It came kind of natural to me. And as I just kept it in my life and kept doing it, you know, sometimes you look around and it starts to maybe mean something to somebody else as well, other than just yourself. And so that's kind of the cool process of it, which is, I always tell people at songwriting camps, hey, you know, if I never performed in front of an audience, music has given me more than I could ever want, right? I mean, it's like just having it in my life. And each of us, again, going back, I think each of us has something like that. But, you know, just to think of all the places that you can go with just your instrument or just your poems or just your thoughts and create sacred space and create connection, or, so, that's what the songwriting process is like for me, is it's just trying to figure out where it belongs, and how to, go, sometimes going places and feeling things, sometimes just getting out in the sun and dancing,
That,
and go ahead, bro.
I was gonna say that rings really true, because I remember that the song that you did touched on issues of poverty and homelessness, and it struck both an emotional and intellectual chord in me that I still remember it. And that's not common with a lot of songs. I mean, a lot of songs, a lot of stuff, it brings you a lot of pleasure and you enjoy it and you're happy and everything. But I just remember your performance because it struck on a whole nother level, and it kind of was like, whoa, this is somebody I got to remember. And the song was really, really moving. And anyway, that's why I had to ask you about the songwriting, because it seemed like it was so incredibly personal.
Well, thank you, Tad.
And
I appreciate
literally
that.
pulled out from within.
Well, and thank you for saying that, man. And again, going back to that wonderful night we all shared for the Santa Cruz 35th, everybody who came up on stage that night, everybody just has this connection on one level or another with their music or their instrument or their body, the playing styles. It's always such an honor to be part of that process with so many different artists. And, myself as a songwriter, and I'm sure, instrumentalists go through this as well, where, given what you're saying, there are times when you can't help but step back and look at the breadth of your material and go, man, a lot of heavy stuff in there. maybe you should lighten it up, brother. But at the same time, we follow those trickles of water and spirit that we follow. And I do like the idea of, writing some stuff that's lighter sometimes. And I think I do that sometimes even just to keep me balanced, because sometimes, sometimes the more emotional stuff can almost be easier, because it's
Right.
just, it's almost, but life is full. Life is a full circle. I sometimes think about that in my performances, when you put together a performance for your audience, if you're going to take them to if you're going to ask them to follow you into some deep emotional terrain, you have to give them a release as well. And as life is, right? Life is, I've gone to some of the most, some of the people that I've visited in different countries and stuff who are suffering the most have taught me the most about how important it is to smile and to dance and to laugh when you have the chance. So there's that.
So thinking positively, what do you see good things happening in the next year for you?
Good things happening the next year. Let's see. Well, we're having fun with these live streams. We're all trying to figure out where to go now, right? With COVID, with things. I'm really enjoying, as Richard said, we dug a bunch of trenches across 61 acres this year. This last summer, I borrowed a tractor from a friend, dug a bunch of trenches because we had almost no internet up here. But again, figuring out ways to stay connected to each other, figuring out ways to keep spreading music and connection. I'm enjoying that part of the process. I was doing an interview not too long ago on the radio about one of the shows we were doing, and somebody was asking how it's changing as a musician. Of course it's changing, it's drastically changed. We're not getting together in the same rooms and playing live, but the technology is also offering us some new opportunities to connect in ways that we hadn't before. And for some of the older, I'm not quite older yet, but I'm getting older. But a lot of the guys that are even much older than me and that have been on the road for a long time, in some ways, the ability to just be able to stay home and have a life and still do their art, from a live stream or from, in their home, getting back to a rhythm. That's one of the things we as touring artists sometimes getting back to guys like, Utah Phillips, who were touring around the country, into their 70s. And, some people aren't having to do that as much. Some people are getting to reclaim some of their health and their life back and still reach their audiences. So, those are some of the fun things, learning more about that, learning how to incorporate, on our last Zoom call, on our last live stream, we brought in my friend Day and Kai from Maui via Zoom. We're wanting to look in. I got to thinking, well, man, if we're going to do this, maybe every show we could go to a different part of the world. We could bring in a friend from Africa, and we can have him hold his iPhone out to some of his drummer friends in the field. I mean, these are some of the positives that we may be looking at. But I got to tell you guys one thing, if this is okay to say. I actually have to go, but I have to go for a good reason. I'm supposed to meet a friend of mine to help him play some Santa Cruz guitars at a shop because he's getting ready to buy one. And because we got a little bit set back with our technology here, I'm running late because he hasn't, we're in COVID now. So he had to make an appointment at the shop. And if it's okay with you, I may have to take off. Is that okay for you guys?
Yeah,
I got to go hawk some Santa Cruz guitars.
You've been way more than generous with your time, Keith, and yeah. we'll figure it out. I just want to make sure that everybody takes a look at the links, the Keith Greeninger website. Look at the backstory on Wind River Studios, and check out Keith's 7 CDs that are available right now. And
Richard, did you guys I'm happy to play a song before I go if you want a song real quick, or
no, we're okay.
We can do part 2. Let's do part 2, man.
Let's do part 2.
Let's come up again. We'll sit around the fire.
Yeah.
And thanks to everybody who's been watching this. It is interesting in these times. For us, this is just a conversation between 3 friends around a table, and I know sometimes it can almost veer off into some interesting terrain. But thanks for joining us for this podcast. And Richard and Tad, thanks for doing this.
We hope you enjoyed this installment of the Santa Cruz Coffee Break. For more music-related fun, please join the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum at SCGCPF or SantaCruzGuitarPlayers.com. If you have any questions or possible podcast topics, please contact us. If you have a product or service that you feel would be of value to our listeners, please consider adding your support and keeping the coffee pot on. Contact us for more information. We ask that you hit the like, follow, bell, or bookmark buttons so we can keep you informed of upcoming podcast episodes. We hope you enjoyed Santa Cruz Coffee Break. Now it's time to go play your guitar.